Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you this week. I got to tell you, another first here on the Positive Polarity Podcast because you know that old saying where you find a jack of all trades and master of none. Well, this guy is not only the jack of all trades, he's the master of all of them as well. And wait till you hear all the stuff that's going on in this guy's life. So I am going to do my best to start with the special needs father he's a human Kaizen expert, author of Everyday Excellence, ultra marathoner, and international martial arts champ. How did I do, Joe?
That's awesome, Dave. And I love the fact that you started with the phrase awesome because that literally is my word. And we
That
can be awesome all the time if we just choose to be so.
Cool. Well, we share a cool word. We share the love of the Minnesota Vikings. So definitely this is going to be a fun time. So I'm honored to be hanging out with Joe Templin. And again, all of those things going on in your life, we're going to unpack those today. So where do you normally start when you have all this stuff going on in your life? Where do you like to start?
Sometimes I like to start at the beginning, actually, because it sort of makes sense, but
Sure.
people people's feelings and philosophies influence their decisions on a continuous basis, which is where we get our outcomes. So our
Okay.
lives, our body is a reflection of the choices that we have made. And those choices, whether it's to exercise or to eat properly or to, do things that we probably shouldn't, like smoking or other stuff like that, are a reflection of older, deeper things. So, I mean, I'm a farm kid. My mom was a nun. Yes, my mom was a nun before she had 6 kids. My dad was military. They were both first generation to go to college. Education was incredibly important. I'm one of 6 kids. So, when you grow up in a very large family, there is an interesting dynamic because you're always competing for attention. And I'm very
Sure.
much the second son. If you haven't noticed already, I'm ADHD. I'm glad that they didn't diagnose and medicate us on that in the 1970s. But when I was 8 years old, I told my mom I wanted to learn everything there was to learn. And so she's like, there's the encyclopedias, get to work.
Sure.
So I have that. And then at 10 years old, I actually died. I was severely, severely asthmatic as a child. And as they say in my Python, I got better, obviously, because I'm talking to you today. But
Sure.
I was flatlined out of my body, seeing the bright light and all that sort of stuff. Was told not yet time, came on back, boom. And because of that, my friends, I live every moment. I am high speed, low drag, as a bunch of my buddies say. And I literally burn the candle at both ends and in the middle with a flamethrower because we all have the same 86,400. I don't care if you're Bill Gates or now the King of England or a college kid. We have the exact same allocation every single day. So I'm trying to not waste any of it. And when you take that approach, you can't dwell on the negatives of situations or bad events or anything. You can try and extract what you can from them, as my father calls them, the pearl of wisdom, so that you're better for the future. But you need to literally move forward. You need to continuously challenge yourself in new ways or find ways to positively impact the world. And if you can do that, yeah, there's some bad moments, there's some bad days, but they do not malinger. And as such, you can accomplish more. And people want to be around you when you actually have that positive attitude.
Well, so, and I don't, thanks for sharing that, Joe. I don't want to gloss over what happened when you were 10 years old because probably not a lot of listeners have died and come back to life. So, I want to just kind of make sure that we heard that correct. So, fill us in on what happened there if you could.
So I was severely, severely asthmatic as a kid. And so the fact that I do all these impressive physical feats, I'm not an athlete. I'm a mathlete. Okay. I'm a hardcore geek. You can see like my comic book stuff back there, actually. And so, but we have the capability to get a little bit better, which is the entire concept behind human Kaizen is you can improve a little bit in some way every single day. And
Sure.
so when I first started trying to run when I was like 10 and a half, 11 years old, I could barely go 100 feet without,
Okay.
sound going. But you extend and you extend and you push yourself and you keep getting at the edge of your comfort zone expands. But
Sure.
before that, as a severely asthmatic kid, I couldn't do basically anything. I
Okay.
mean, I would have these triggered asthma attacks, and literally, you cannot get oxygen into your system. Everything
Mhm.
constricts. And so we've all seen that fish that's there flopping, trying to get oxygen. That is
Sure.
literally what it's like, and your entire body's fighting to survive. And so I had one of these when I was 10 years old, and my mom brought me to Doc Murray because in those days you didn't have the puffers that everyone carries around with them. And
Sure.
so like they'd have to like give you adrenaline and stuff like this, and then they put you in an oxygen tent. And so that's why I missed basically all of second grade one year. And I explained that's why my handwriting sucks, but it's probably just because I can't write anyway. But so I'm lying there on the table, and going, and all of a sudden I there was not that constraint. There was not that fighting for breath. And
Sure.
I, started floating up completely weightless, sort of like when you scuba dive, but going up instead of down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the big bright light and all that. And the James Earl Jones type voice came on out. It's not yet your time. Bang, back down my body, all that. And like while I was floating up, Doc Murray literally like almost turned into an octopus with like 8 arms, running around like crazy, and my mom's freaking out and all that.
Sure.
So I
Sure.
came on back. They took me to the hospital. I got through that one. And from that point forward, it's just been not accepting my limitations. And so that's why, whether it's martial arts or ultra running or learning things or publishing books or anything, it's keep pushing and developing myself. And in some ways, sometimes I go a little too far. And so that's something that I need to learn, is to when to take my foot off the gas. As
Sure.
my friend Athena reminds me, I'm no good to anyone if I'm broken. So,
Wow. Well, that's an awesome story. And there was one thing that kind of interweaved in there that I want to jump on, and that was that, that Kaizen, that continual improvement. And for business owners listening today, Joe, where they're just trying to make payroll and they're just trying to keep the lights on and they're just
mhm.
trying to keep the ship moving in the right direction. This stuff all sounds really great, and probably not a lot of them are even listening because they're too busy, trying to keep afloat. But for somebody that is listening that doesn't really understand, I mean, I understand what continuous improvement means, but I really don't know how to start that, because there's 25 things in my life right now, Joe, that I could improve.
Yep.
So, where do I start? And should I start? So what
Well,
advice?
let's start with
Yeah.
the should I start? The answer
Yeah.
is yes.
Okay.
Okay. Let's
Thank you.
get that pretty clear.
Sure.
And the Chinese have a saying: the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best is
Sure.
today.
Sure.
Okay. And as my friends who are struggling with sobriety and going through AA and all of them talk about, the most important day is today. I don't care
Sure.
what happened yesterday. You didn't die, so you have another chance today to do something great. And I don't
Okay.
really care about tomorrow. You lay the groundwork for tomorrow, but you can only focus on today. So you need to do something today to improve. And
Okay.
if we look around, there's all sorts of things that we can do. Eat the apple instead of the cupcake. Take the stairs up to the second floor instead of taking the elevator. Park, another 50 feet away so you're walking an extra 50 feet. Um, Subscribe to any of the in a year or of a day sort of podcasts, whether you want to do the Bible in a year with Father Mike Schmitz, or you want to do the Daily Stoic with Ryan Holiday, something like that. That takes 1 to 2 minutes. My book is called a multivitamin for life because it's literally, you take it every morning and it's 1 to 3 minutes of stuff. But find something that you can improve on. And I use this example. If you spend a half hour every single day working on something, whether it's practicing your language, if you're a salesperson, or if it's working to improve your LinkedIn profile because you're trying to find another job, or if it's practicing guitar or learning a language, anything that you can commit to, that I'm going to do this every single day, because you have to be consistent to be excellent. I want everyone to write that down. You have to be consistent to be excellent. So if you spend a half hour every single day working on something, like I work with training a lot of salespeople, half hour a day working on your language, at the end of the year, That is 190-ish hours. That is the equivalent of 9 to 5 every single day for a month. If you crammed like that on one particular aspect of your business or focused on really driving it, guess what? Your
Yeah.
business is going to improve. So
So,
find that one little thing that you can focus on every single day and just
okay.
do it.
So is it one, so just for clarification, Joe, is it one thing, do I master that and then go on to something else? Or is this just something that I'm constantly always doing?
The way that I like to look at it is if you can spend, 5 minutes a day working on something, practicing your sales language, 5 minutes a day, you're going to improve dramatically over a
Okay.
couple of week period.
Sure.
Right now, focus on doing that 5 minutes while you're also out walking, because you're going to 5 extra minutes per day of walking is going to slightly improve your health. Okay, there's all sorts of things about how it impacts your mental acuity, and we can get into the biochemistry and the psychology of it if we want to, but just that little thing. Then add something else into it. Hey, I'm going to make a slightly better choice associated with my eating or whatever. We make on average someplace between 10 and 12,000 micro decisions every single day.
Okay.
And as Colossus tells Deadpool in the movie, 4 or 5 moments. 4 or 5 moments determine over a lifetime whether you're a hero or not. With those of us that lack superpowers, unfortunately, it's 4 or 5 choices a day. Little choices that determine whether your arrow is going to be pointing up for the day or pointing down. So try and when at first it's focusing, it requires effort to look and make these choices. But if you can then create systems to help reinforce it. For example, if you don't want to eat junk food, what do? You don't have junk food in the house. Suddenly
Sure.
you've eliminated 90% plus of the opportunities to have said junk food. So you're going to make better choices around
Sure.
that particular thing, and it's now become a habit. If you get up and you use habit stacking like James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, and one of the first things that you do is you listen to a 3 to 5 minute audio while you're going about getting ready for the morning, making your coffee, what have you, getting the kids ready, then you are double dipping on your time. You're getting extra use out of that 86,400 seconds, and you're prepping the entire rest of your day. So your mind's in a better place, your spirit's in a better place. If you get that little workout in the morning, that little walk while you're doing it, then your body's a little bit better. So it's these little things. So as Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said, well-being is no small thing, but it's made up of small steps. Look around, take a couple of seconds to figure out a couple of little things that you can do differently, better, or little things that you can eliminate, like getting rid of that dating app on your phone if you're married, like I had one of my friends do, or just eliminating that one game or that one app that just sucks time, doesn't add anything to you. So the little things like that. But if you're continuously doing one tiny change per day, one little thing slightly better, taking a couple extra minutes to feed your mind or body or stuff like that, then what happens is you get this compounding effect. And discipline and excellence are very similar in that if you have more discipline in one area, it bleeds over into other things. So Admiral McRaven talked about making your bed in his great commencement speech that he did, because it's the start of discipline and it's imposing a little bit of order on your life. I've got a close friend, her mom is in almost into the hospice stage. And so we're focused on her doing one thing a day just to straighten something up a little bit here, a little bit there, because it's imposing order on the chaos of her life. And that's something she
Sure.
can handle, which then allows her to handle the other things. I make my bed every single morning. I hate making my bed. I hated making my bed as a kid. I hate making my bed now. And you know what? I take 30 seconds to do it
Sure.
because it is just that little imposition of order. And it just made me use my discipline muscles slightly. So then I can use that in terms of other things throughout the day. So the little things become big things.
So I'm just curious because when you say that, I think about all the things that I didn't do. Like
Mhm.
if like you said, hey, take the stairs or eat an apple instead of a cupcake, whatever. I really appreciate that. But there's like these things in my mind, Joe, that are like, yeah, but, there's all these yeah, buts in my mind. And even as you were talking about it, it's like, yeah, but,
So
get rid
here's
of
the
all
thing,
this.
when they're like digging for gold, do they focus on the 99.99% that's, just wasted stuff? Or they're like, oh, this little bit here, this shiny bit, this is the value.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. So, we all screw up. I mean, I screw up more than anybody else because I'm trying to do so many things and I take so many chances, big and little, constantly. And if I focused on all my screw ups, I would be broken. Do you think that the great baseball players who hit 300, do they focus on the 7 out of 10 times that they didn't get the hit?
Right.
No,
Yep.
they're lauded for the hits that they got over and over and over again. In a couple of years, Ichiro is going to go into the Hall of Fame. He got 3,000 hits in his career in Major League Baseball, plus what he did in Japan. I mean, the guy was one of the greatest hitters of all time. He broke Sisler's single season record, evident. And, he still 2/3 of the time was not getting on base.
Sure.
So
Right.
you focus on the little things, So this was a win. This was a win. Okay, this was not quite so good. What can I do to change that particular thing? Because if you're looking at everything, you're going to get overwhelmed. But if you're like, all right, so yesterday I did not make enough calls for work. Okay, I didn't do any. All right, what can I do so I can commit to that fact that I'm going to make 5 calls every single day? 5 calls that'll take me less than a cup of coffee. How do I
Sure.
structure my day so I'm continuously doing that? Because if you go from doing, 10 calls one day, none for the next 3 and all that, and you're averaging 2 or 3, doing 5 a day consistently gets the flywheel going.
Sure.
And you're going to see these successes come on out. And that's one of the reasons for the design on the front of the book, that whole nonlinear growth curve. Because if you're continuously doing this, I don't care if it's only 5 minutes or 10 minutes per day, it adds up and bears results. And as you're getting better with it, then you can get better at getting better.
Wow. Well, and that's interesting because I call them little course corrections throughout the day. And, so living in Milwaukee and also having a house in San Diego, if you fly out of Milwaukee Airport and you head in the direction of San Diego and, a couple minutes into the flight, the pilot decides to make a 2-degree course correction, you end up in LA, which is a
Yeah.
painful 2.5 hour drive away. Right.
As a
So,
reformed physicist, I talk about the same thing with rockets going to the moon, because you make a micro correction and you could end up literally on a completely different planet. But it could also be, hey, I'm slightly off path. We're recording this towards the end of January. People might not be on track for their annual goals. You know what? You can make a small change today. And are you going to make up the entire year today? No.
yep.
But you can change that course correction, and in 2-3 weeks you can catch up, and then you're actually ahead of curve in terms of your rate, and you can actually have a better year than what you were expecting by making those micro adjustments today.
Is it normal for people to kind of have this all or nothing thinking, especially around the first of the year? Like, oh, I fell off the wagon, therefore I'm not
Yep.
getting back on. I'm just going to go back to my norm. Is that kind of the brain
Yeah,
pro
unfortunately
that way?
people are very binary in their thinking, and it's because we have literally 3 different brains running simultaneously. If you have ever studied the triune brain model, which, by the way, I've got a really cool, completely free 3-day training on that at my site. It's called the 3-day 3 brain. But if you look, the lizard brain is the oldest part, and that's all fight, flight, fear, food, freeze, procreation for the last
Sure.
F. I'll let them interpret that. But, and then you have your mammalian above that, which is emotional, relational. That's where we have memory encoding, all that. So this 80+%, people like have a bad day because they give in because they want tacos, because they're hungry and they want to go spend time with their buddies because we want the human connection. So they fall off one day, and the neocortex, which is the front part, which is actually the weak nerd part, but is incredibly powerful, is like, that's it, I'm done, and it throws up its hands, as
Okay.
opposed to saying, all right, you know what? We'll just restart the streak. Today we'll do
Yep.
it.
Wow.
We'll do it right today. And Jerry Seinfeld talked about writing every single day as a comedian. You write one joke a day, and he had a calendar and he'd cross off the days. And eventually, when you build up the streak, you want to keep the streak going. That's one of the reasons for like Fitbit. If you're hitting
Sure.
your goals every single day, it shows you 27 days in a row or what
Yep.
have you. So
Sure.
like I got up to, I think it was like 142, but then I got severely injured in one of my races, and so I couldn't run or even walk. And my physiotherapist is like, "Yeah, you're going to break your leg again if you do that." So my
Wow.
streak broke. But you build this habit where it becomes self-perpetuating on the good side. And so why it broke, you know what? You start another streak. And
Yeah.
so it's that, people need to learn to forgive themselves. And as the former gifted child, I mean, I started college at 13 because my parents said 12 was too young. We were raised with it has to be perfect. It's 100 or you're a failure. And over time, you start seeing the shades of gray. You start understanding the nuances. You start understanding, you know what? It doesn't have to be perfect. And this is for like business owners. You need to ship your MVP, your minimum viable product. It's not like it was 25 years ago when my friends were shipping video games. And if it wasn't perfect, you had to send out another disc and all this other stuff. Now it's like, all right, we send an update out over the interwebs, bang, it's done. 30 seconds later, things are changing, and you can make these micro improvements constantly. We can
Sure.
do that with ourselves, whether it's our business, whether it's our health, whether it's our relationships, whether it's our spiritual nature, all these different things. So just make these tiny little, essentially software updates every single day to yourself. And over time, you're going to look back and be like, damn, I'm doing pretty good. Or actually, your friends are going to tell you that first. You won't see
Right.
it until after other people are seeing it.
Sure. Well, and I think, I mean, I love that encouragement of start today. I mean, it doesn't really matter what happened yesterday. Like you said, you can live in that, or you can live in this new day. So I enjoy starting each new day, trying to understand and trying to think of, be open and watching for what's cool is going to happen. What opportunities do I have? What choices do I get to make? I mean, like you said, 10 to 12,000 little decisions a day. That seems overwhelming until you realize that, they come natural, right?
Yeah.
And
And so
so
that's why Steve Jobs actually had, the black turtleneck, black jeans, and sneakers, because he just eliminated that entire decision process. So he could allocate that bandwidth to other things. There's a reason why 90+% of my work shirts are white shirts. I have dark suits, and I have ties that can go with several different suits, because literally I don't want to take the time to think about it. I
sure.
just want to grab, go, throw it on, and be functional.
Wow. That's funny. Well, and so you again said something fascinating that you started college at 13. So what was that? That must have been a unique experience with all the rest of the kids around you, or how did that, how
Well,
did
I grew up in a high performance environment. I've got my older brother. My mom was an educator. So we were always exposed and driven. And most importantly, we were curious. My mom fed our curiosity, which is a beautiful thing. And so with an ADHD kid with curiosity, you can pick up a lot of things. It's a good thing that, Google didn't exist back then, because I never would have gotten off the computer.
sure,
But so I was actually in the Johns Hopkins program, so the same program that Mark Zuckerberg and Lady Gaga and all these went through. This is where they took high potential kids, and for an entire summer, we would be off at college together. We called it Genius Camp, and we'd make fun of it. But so we were on a college campus, but it was 13 to 15 or 16-year-olds taking college classes together. But
gotcha,
so we weren't in the regular college classes, but we were on the college campus and interacting with them. I also
sure,
did it on the weekends doing that. So I was also taking regular college classes by the time I was like 15 or 16 years old, plus my own just sheer desire to learn. I'm an autodidactic polymath as opposed to a Renaissance man, because I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. But so I'm just a constant sponge to learn and grow and try and understand. And so having these people who I was around who were also at that level, plus interacting with regular college kids along the way, gave me a chance to be able to learn on multiple different parameters. So some of these people who I met 35 plus years ago. I mean, my friend Dr. Adrian Scott, ended up getting his PhD in mathematics at 20 years old and was one of the original big crypto guys and all that. So Rich Berman, and I've got friends who are like, big time attorneys and doctors and all that, who we met 35 plus years ago. And
Sure.
just like if somebody goes to a sports camp, they're with other people doing the same sport, and other sports are on the campus at the same time, and they have experts teaching them, and they've got this group of elite potential people that are pushing each other. That's what we ended up having. And so when I ended up eventually going to Rensselaer Polytechnic, or like when I was working for the Department of Defense doing research or all this, or as a martial artist, it's just this, okay, there's people better than me. There's this push, there's this desire to uncover and understand and improve. And so that's why I'm like this today.
Wow. Well, that's so cool. And there's so much here. I'm curious, about did the book come natural for you? Was it all stored up in your brain, and once you started writing, it just came out? Or
So this is actually, I've written 7 poetry books, 2 tax books, 2 financial planning books, 2 training books or 3 now training books for
wow.
financial advisors. So during COVID, I was also going through a divorce. My company shut down. My speakers bureau that I had signed with went out of business. So I had all this stuff going on
Sure.
simultaneously. And one of the things is that I write on a regular basis, whether it was working on the books or articles, poetry, all this other stuff. And so I was downstairs, as I normally would be, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm listening to Jocko Willink speak on one device. I'm blasting some Black Sabbath while I'm throwing around kettlebells at that point. And Jocko made a comment, excellence is a habit. I'm throwing around the kettlebell, and I'm like, I stop halfway through because I had that Satori moment. And excellence is a habit. Habits need to be practiced every day. Everyday excellence. And I literally had the vision of how the book was going to be. Put down
Sure.
the kettlebell, went upstairs, brain dumped for about 20 minutes on the concepts and the structure, because the structure of the book's a little bit different. It's a daily reader with a quote from somebody,
Okay.
discussion and analysis going across all sorts of different parameters, but then there's an action item every single day. So people literally have to do something which changes them and improves them for that day. And it's focused on a lot of different areas. So then I went back downstairs, finished my workout, because you finish what you start.
Yep.
And then I ended up building out. So I knew what I needed to do with the book. And then it was the process of actually doing it. And so using habit stacking, every single morning I'd get up, I'd brain dump what was in my head. I'd grab my cup of coffee. I'd start the coffee pot, because I prepped the coffee pot the next night before. It left half a cup to just get me going. Sit down, brain dump. Then I would go downstairs, do my martial arts for 20 minutes, come on upstairs, write at least 1 page in the book one day, essentially. Then I
Yep.
would go for a 20-minute run. Then I'd come back, I'd write another page. Then I would do my marketing, shower, shave, and I'd be, ready to leave for the office at 6:15 in the morning. So I did
Wow.
that every single day, and that's how I was able to write a 700 plus page book in 6 months.
Jeez. I'm the opposite. Mine was, oh my gosh, mine was a challenge, but I'm glad it's done, and that's awesome.
But
I'm
let's
just,
talk about your writing your book, actually, Dave,
yeah,
because some people say it's like birthing a kid. I've got friends who are authors of different genres, like historical fiction, business, and all this stuff. But
sure.
we find one of the things that I've found is the process of writing the book clarifies your thinking, it clarifies your understanding, it makes you realize that there's some things that you don't know and understand, so you go and explore them. And so even if you don't know what your book's going to be yet, starting along the path of writing a book is like starting working on a degree or a painting or
Sure.
anything where you need to grow while you're creating.
Sure. Well, and that's interesting, because when I wrote my book, I made the mistake of thinking that I knew everything already, and that was, I was just going to tap into what I already had in my brain. And that didn't work because I got deep into this topic of, team strength and customer experience. And then I realized that I kind of was at this cliff, and I'm like, I can't stop here. There's only like 4 pages, so I had to really get deep into it. But it was one of those things, again, that if you look at it as a whole, it was like, how in the world? But when you take it at a day at a time, like you're talking about, Joe, and that's, I think, what I want to encourage the listeners, that, there's a lot of things here that we may never be an ultra marathoner. I think you got to fourth level, 4th degree black belt, right?
Yep.
So we may not get to 4th degree black belt. And so, like I said, a lot of people are like, well, then I'm not even going to try. And so that's where I couldn't look at the end and look at a finished book, because it didn't exist. So I had to look at page 1, and then I had to look at page 2. And I think that's really a help for anyone listening that may not be where they want to be. Maybe my company that I sold, we were doing 10 million in annual sales. And people are like, wow, that's impressive. And I'm like, well, we didn't go from 0 day 1 to day 2, 10 million. It took a number of years to get that.
And you learn and you grow and you change. Just like people don't roll off the couch and run a marathon.
Right.
And there is very little difference, though, between a 5K and a marathon and an ultra marathon. It's still exactly, you put one foot in front of the other, and then you do it again. You do it again. It's just, how many times do you do it? That's just like building a sales business. That's like writing a book. That's like almost anything. You just do your fundamentals, the things that move you forward towards your goal, and you just keep doing them. Now, to do that, you have to understand what your goal is, and you need to understand what those steps are. Is it, do I pick up the phone to reach people? Do I build a sales funnel? Do I email these things? Do I need to be out literally knocking doors? Whatever it is. But the difference between the 5K and the 10K and the 15K and the half marathon and the marathon is just how long you've been doing it, how far off out in that linear growth curve you are. So if you're sitting on the couch right now, don't sign up for the marathon, but sign up for the 5K in 3 months and start working towards it. And yes, that is an analogy for your business. If you're sitting on the couch with your business, what are the smallest steps that you can take to start building it? Then do that today. Then tomorrow, do a little bit more than that. Then the next day, do a little bit more than that. And pretty soon, you've actually changed your identity from a couch potato to a runner. You've changed your identity from whatever to a business owner, to a leader. And so it's those little steps, but you keep doing them and doing them in line with, this is the vision that I'm trying to achieve.
And if you choose not to, if you're listening and you choose not to, I don't think that that's good or bad, right or wrong. I just don't want you to get mad at Joe or I in a year from now, when you're still sitting on the couch and your sales aren't where you want them to be, your customer experience or your team's not where, whatever your goal is, it's not being realized because you're not doing anything with that. So that's why we bring people like Joe every week to really encourage you in a little way, sometimes big ways, like Joe's talking about. And it's like, but it's everyday excellence. There's something that you can do today that you may not have thought of, that you can do, that you can look back and go, oh my gosh, I had fruit instead of chips, or whatever it is, whatever.
That's a celebration,
right?
Hey,
exactly.
No goose eggs. You need to do something every single day to make yourself better or improve your business or whatever. So that could be getting introductions. That could be having a difficult conversation with somebody. That could be, if you're dealing with depression or things like that, that could be getting out of bed and eating something. It might not be the healthiest. It might be a Pop-Tart as opposed to something healthier. But you know what? That's the best you could have done at that moment in that situation. That's still going to move you back along towards where you need to be. So we all fall off path at certain times. I mean, I broke my leg last year when I was training for a race, and literally I couldn't do any ultra marathons last year. Okay. So you know what? That first time that I was out walking after I was allowed to actually start pushing it a little bit, and I went out and walked 3 miles. I couldn't run 3 miles. 6 months earlier, I was out running 30 miles and I'm having trouble walking 3. But you know what? I did it. And then a couple of days later, I went a little bit further. So it doesn't matter where you are. Do the best that you can with a vision of, I'm going to improve overall. And you know what? So you don't want to be an ultra marathoner. You want to be able to do a 5K. That's still awesome. That's still
Sure.
better. That's still the best version of you. And that's one of the things that I impress upon my kids and people that I coach. Don't try to be a clone of me. Okay, one, because they broke the mold, safety, because they don't want more of me. But two, be the best version of you. Be you. So an example that I use sometimes is everybody knows Bruce Lee, the wonderful martial artist and everything. Bruce Lee, if you watch the movie The China Connection, those were his glasses. He literally was like almost blind like that. And that's one of the reasons why I studied Wing Chun, which is a close-in fighting style, because he couldn't see very far. And the other thing is, he had one leg that was a half an inch shorter than the other one.
Wow.
So some people would say, oh, this is a disadvantage. I can never do martial arts because of this. And he realized, all right, he was naturally set up to be able to do spinning techniques because of it. Some people call it a weakness. He saw the strength in it. And so in his movies, he's got all these wicked spinning kicks because his body was just slightly outside the normal parameters that allowed him to do that better.
Wow. Well, and for the people listening, again, find some, I guess my advice, and I want to hear yours, Joe, as we start to land the plane today, my advice would be to find somebody in that you trust that will help you with this, right? Because you need usually accountability is helpful. Usually somebody can help you with your blind spots. But if
there's an old Irish saying that the best mirror is a good friend.
Perfect.
And so they will point out your blind spots sometimes pretty blatantly because that's what friends do.
Right.
But the other thing is that they will hold you accountable if they really are a friend because they want to see the best version of you. So sometimes they're going to fight you when you're trying to do something stupid, when you're being lazy, when you're making decisions that are not in your own best interest. They're going to smack you upside the head and say, hey, buddy, I love you. Knock it off. And that's exactly what you want because they'll also be there to praise you and celebrate the wins. And so having that good friend who is honest yet holds you accountable is the single best thing that you can have for your business or for your life.
And maybe at work you don't have that because you don't have anybody close, then find an accountability group, find some kind of mentor, find a coach. If people want to talk with you, Joe, and learn more about you, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Probably the best way is through my website, everyday-excellence.com. They can leave comments there. We put free resources up every single day. They can also find my books, YouTube, the Twitter feed, all that sort of stuff is available there. This podcast is going to live up there too, by the way, Dave.
Awesome.
So they can always reach out to me that way and interact, and I'll get back to them.
Awesome. Well, again, there's so much here, and my intention is always, rather than turn this podcast off and go on to your next activity, is take a minute and sit with what you thought, what was presented to you today, because it's entirely possible that there's something here that if you engage in it, it can alter and change the course of your life. And again, maybe it's the small things like we talked about, maybe it's the big things. How far, by the way, is the ultra marathon? I don't even know the answer to that.
It's technically anything over 26.2 miles, which is a standard marathon.
Okay.
So after I did my last real marathon, I swore I would never do one again. So my first ultra was a double marathon because in my mind, two negatives make a positive. And from a mathematical view, that's completely correct. But when you're 40 plus miles in and you just keep going, you're like, so your brain gets a little funky. So my first ultra was a double marathon. My second one was a 100-miler. And my next one's going to be 125 kilometers.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, hats off to you, my friend. That is so cool for that, for all that you do. I have no clue how you get any sleep. I have no clue. You must eat while you're working out and practicing. You drink a lot of coffee. Absolutely. So, and again, this is Joe's journey. have to really practice not to feel like envious. I have to practice not to be like, I'm never going to sleep again. I'm going to quit my job and do everything that Joe does. You know, we all have our spot here on this earth, and, you know, our whole
Dude, I
goal.
look at the stuff that you're doing and I'm like, man, he's doing so awesome with that. I wish I could have done that. Oh, that's inspiring. What one thing can I learn from Dave that I
Yeah.
can learn to be a better version of Joe? And so I hope your listeners are, you know, I don't want them to be like me because the
Yep.
world would be a really weird place if it was. But take one or two little things from
Yep.
what I've done to become the better version of you. And that's
Absolutely.
exactly your journey, your path.
Yep, absolutely. And that's, again, it's hard to sit and listen to all this and not have that like heaviness. So that's where I'm giving you permission to let it go. Just find a couple things. And that's why Joe and I are here. So if you get stuck, rather than just jump back on the couch, stay off the couch and call us. Reach out to us, jump on his website, you know, look at some of his material, and, you know, re-listen to this podcast, whatever it takes for you to get unstuck. That's really what the whole message is here, to be able to get you to move forward, because that continuous improvement is awesome. So I really appreciate your time, Joe. Thank you so much for showing us a glimpse into your life, and 45 minutes, and you didn't have to take a call or you didn't do any working out. So thanks for not, I was expecting you to start multitasking as we were talking.
Actually,
So.
here's a little thing for your clients. One of the things that I learned with my ADHD, my phone's actually turned off completely.
Okay.
So when I am working with somebody, whether it's as a client or, you know, as a guest on somebody's podcast like this,
Sure.
or with my kids, I am 100% yours. I am present. So my phone is literally in another room in airplane mode so that I can give all of me to you right now.
Awesome. Yep.
And your kids, your significant other, your business partners deserve that. And you deserve that occasionally too, to take that time and be like, no, this is me time. And so turn off the phone completely so that you can 100% focus for 45 minutes, and then you'll really accomplish some great stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that tip. And again, if you've gone through this and you didn't learn anything, that's on you, because Joe laid out a ton of stuff. And if you don't like this episode, let Joe know. But if you like it, let me know, okay? Because I'm going to take credit. But no, thank you again so much for this, and I can't wait to keep watching and learning from you moving forward.
Dave, thank you. Be excellent and grow today.